Maria Santos had been scrubbing toilets for 37 years. Her calloused hands gripped the worn brush as she cleaned the executive washroom on the 42nd floor of the Nexus Corporation building. The gleaming chrome fixtures reflected her weathered face, showing every line earned from decades of honest work. She hummed an old lullaby her grandmother taught her while working. The melody echoed softly in the pristine bathroom, a small comfort in her solitary routine. At 62, Maria had accepted her place in the world. She wasn't bitter about it. Work was work, and she took pride in leaving every surface spotless. The building shook violently without warning. Emergency sirens wailed through the ventilation system as the lights flickered. Maria grabbed the sink to steady herself, her heart racing. Through the small window, she saw something impossible. Massive ships hung in the sky like dark storm clouds. They were nothing like the sleek spacecraft from movies. These vessels looked organic, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to ripple like living skin. Smaller craft darted between the buildings like angry wasps. The intercom crackled to life. This is not a drill. All personnel report to designated emergency areas immediately. Do not attempt to leave the building. Maria's hands trembled as she packed her cleaning supplies. She had survived gang wars in her neighborhood, raised 3 children alone, and worked through every crisis the city had faced. But this felt different. This felt like the end of everything. She made her way to the emergency stairwell, joining the flood of panicked employees. Executives in expensive suits pushed past her, their faces pale with fear. No one noticed the old cleaning lady. They never did. The building shook again, more violently this time. Through the stairwell windows, Maria watched beams of blue light slice through other skyscrapers like butter through bread. The screams of her fellow humans echoed in the narrow space. 20 floors down, the building's emergency systems failed. The lights died, plunging them into darkness. People stumbled and fell into blackness. Maria pulled out her small flashlight, the same one she used to check corners for missed spots. "This way," she called out, her voice steady despite her fear. "Hold the railing and follow my light." She guided dozens of people down the remaining flights. Her knees ached with each step, but she kept moving. When a young intern twisted his ankle, she helped him walk. When an executive had a panic attack, she talked him through breathing exercises she'd learned from her daughter, who was a nurse. They reached the lobby just as the front windows exploded inward. Through the shattered glass came creatures that made Maria's blood freeze. They stood 8 feet tall, covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. Their heads were elongated, almost dragon-like, with glowing amber eyes that seemed to see everything. The creatures moved with fluid grace, their clawed hands gesturing as they spoke in a language of clicks and harmonics. Some carried weapons that hummed with energy. Others held devices that projected holographic symbols in the air. Maria found herself separated from the group in the chaos. She ducked behind the reception desk, clutching her flashlight like a weapon. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it over the screams and alien chatter. One of the creatures approached her hiding spot. Its massive form cast a shadow over the desk. Maria closed her eyes and thought of her grandchildren. She pictured their faces, remembering how they'd laugh at her silly jokes during family dinners. The creature rounded the desk and stared down at her with those burning amber eyes. It tilted its scaled head, studying her like she was a curious specimen. Maria looked back, surprising herself with her steady gaze. The creature made a soft trilling sound and knelt down to her level. Its expression was unreadable, but something in its posture seemed almost respectful. It extended one clawed hand toward her, palm up, in what might have been a gesture of peace. Maria's cleaning badge hung from her shirt, identifying her as Environmental Services Level 1. The creature's eyes fixed on it, then looked back at her face. It spoke a single word in accented English. "Mother." The word hung in the air between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Maria stared at the creature, seeing something in its alien features that reminded her of her own children when they were frightened. Without thinking, she reached out and gently touched its scaled hand. The creature's eyes widened, and it made a sound like a sob. Around the lobby, other aliens had stopped their activities to watch. The air hummed with tension and something else, recognition. Maria didn't understand what was happening, but her instincts kicked in. The same instincts that had helped her raise 3 children and care for countless others over the years. She saw fear in those amber eyes, despite the creature's imposing size. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice carrying the same gentle tone she'd used to comfort her babies during thunderstorms. "Everything's going to be okay." The creature's breathing slowed, matching her calm rhythm. Other aliens began to approach, their movements cautious but not threatening. They formed a circle around Maria and the kneeling creature, their eyes fixed on her with something that looked like wonder. Maria's flashlight illuminated their faces, casting dancing shadows on the walls. In that light, she saw past their fearsome appearance to something else. They looked lost, homesick, like children far from everything they knew and loved. She thought of her own grandmother, who had immigrated from Mexico with nothing but hope and determination. How frightened she must have been in a new world where nothing was familiar. How she must have longed for someone to show her kindness. "Are you far from home?" Maria asked softly. The kneeling creature nodded slowly. When it spoke again, its voice carried pain that transcended language barriers. "Very far, Mother. Very far." The building groaned around them as more ships descended outside. But in that small circle of light, surrounded by alien beings who had traveled impossible distances across the stars, an old cleaning lady discovered that some things were universal. The need for comfort, the longing for understanding, the simple human act of reaching out to touch another soul, no matter how different it might appear. Maria Santos had spent her life cleaning up messes and taking care of others. As the world changed forever around her, she realized that some jobs never ended. They just got bigger. The creature before her trembled slightly, and Maria did what she had always done when faced with someone who needed care. She opened her arms. The massive alien leaned forward into her embrace, its scales warm against her weathered hands. Around them, others began to lower their weapons and remove their helmets, revealing faces that were terrifying and beautiful and utterly alien. But in their eyes, Maria saw something she recognized. The same look her children had given her when they needed to know that everything would be all right. And despite the impossible circumstances, despite the fear and confusion and complete upheaval of everything she had ever known, Maria Santos smiled. She had work to do. 3 days later, Maria sat in what used to be the building's conference room, now transformed into something between a command center and a nursery. Holographic displays flickered around the room, showing star maps and alien text, while several young Drachmari huddled near her chair like oversized puppies. The creatures called themselves Drachmari, and their leader was named Thexvar. He was the one who had first called her mother in the lobby. Now he stood at the far end of the room, gesturing at displays with other adults of his species, while occasionally glancing her way like a child checking if his parent was still there. Maria had learned bits and pieces of their story over the past few days. The Drachmari were refugees fleeing something they called the Void Swarm, a mechanical plague that consumed entire star systems. They had traveled for generations looking for a new home, their ships overcrowded with the survivors of dozens of worlds. But there was more to it, something about humans that made the aliens react to them in ways that confused even the Drachmari themselves. They kept calling her mother and showing her a reverence that made Maria deeply uncomfortable. She was just a toilet cleaner, for crying out loud. "Maria?" Dr. Elizabeth Harper approached cautiously. She was one of the Nexus Corporation scientists who had been trapped in the building during the arrival. Over the past 3 days, she had become something of a translator between the humans and Drachmari. "Yes, dear." Maria looked up from the small Drachmari child who had fallen asleep against her leg. The little one couldn't be more than equivalent to a human 5-year-old, with softer scales and large, curious eyes. "Thexvar wants to show you something." He says it's important for you to understand why they're here. Maria gently shifted the sleeping child to a cushion and followed Dr. Harper to the holographic displays. Fexvar turned as she approached, his amber eyes brightening with what she was learning to recognize as their version of a smile. "Mother Maria," he said in his careful English, "please, we show you why we journey so far." The displays shifted, showing images that took Maria's breath away. Beautiful worlds with crystal cities and flowing gardens. Drachmary families tending to their young. Children playing in fields under strange but warm suns. Then, the images changed. Darkness fell across the worlds like a spreading disease. Mechanical creatures poured from the sky, their forms shifting and adaptive. The crystal cities crumbled. The gardens withered. The children ran screaming. "The void swarm," Fexvar explained, his voice heavy with grief. "They consume all life. Convert all matter to serve their hunger. We fought. We lost. We ran." Maria watched the destruction with tears in her eyes. She had seen tragedy before, but this was genocide on a scale she couldn't comprehend. "But why Earth?" Dr. Harper asked. "Why come here?" Fexvar touched a control, and the display changed again. This time it showed complex genetic charts and biological diagrams that meant nothing to Maria but made Dr. Harper gasp. "Your species," Fexvar said slowly, "is what we call nurturers. Very rare in galaxy. We have legends of nurturers from before the great dying of our homeworld. They could calm the berserker rage, heal the broken minds, teach the lost children." He gestured to Maria with something approaching worship in his expression. "We thought legends were just stories. Then, we found your world, scanned your people. The genetic markers are unmistakable. You are descendants of the nurturers who saved our species long ago." "That's impossible," Dr. Harper protested. "Human evolution is well documented. We evolved here on Earth." "Yes," Fexvar agreed. "But your earliest ancestors, they came from stars. Survivors of worlds the void swarm destroyed. They found this world, made it safe, hid their children here to grow in peace." Maria felt dizzy. "You're saying humans aren't really from Earth?" "You are from Earth," Fexvar corrected gently. "But your great-great-great-mothers, they were from stars. Like us. The nurturers saved many species before final sacrifice. We are their children too." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Maria thought of her grandmother's stories about their family, tales passed down through generations about ancestors who came from far away to find a new home. She had always assumed it meant Mexico. "The void swarm," Dr. Harper said quietly. "They're still out there?" "Yes. They follow us. Not fast, but patient. They will find Earth in perhaps 50 years. Maybe less." 50 years, Maria repeated. "What happens then?" Fexvar's scales darkened, a sign of deep emotion. "They will try to consume this world as they consumed ours. But now we have hope." He knelt before Maria again, as he had in the lobby. "The legends say nurturers can do more than calm frightened children. They can teach us to fight as one, to stand together against the darkness, to be strong when all hope seems lost." "Fexvar," Maria said gently, "I'm just a cleaning lady. I don't know anything about fighting cosmic monsters. I can barely keep my own life together." "You clean messes others left behind," he replied. "You cared for those who could not care for themselves. You brought calm to chaos. You gave comfort to the afraid. This is what nurturers do." Around the room, other Drachmary had gathered. Adults and children alike watched her with those glowing amber eyes, waiting for her to somehow save them all. Maria felt the weight of their expectations like a physical force. These beings had traveled across the galaxy fleeing extinction, pinning their hopes on legends about humans they had never met. And now they expected her, a 62-year-old woman who scrubbed toilets for a living, to be their salvation. "I need some air," she said quietly. Dr. Harper started to follow, but Fexvar stopped her with a gentle touch. "Let Mother think," he said. "She carries great burden now." Maria made her way to the building's rooftop garden. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the plants as she sat on a bench overlooking the city. In the distance, She could see the massive Drakmari ships hovering like sleeping giants. She thought about her children. Her son Miguel was a teacher in Chicago. Her daughter Carmen was the nurse in Phoenix. Her youngest, Roberto, was serving in the Navy somewhere in the Pacific. They were good kids, all grown up now with families of their own. What would happen to her grandchildren if these void swarms came to Earth? What would happen to all the children playing in playgrounds across the world, unaware that their future was being decided by their grandmother's decision to clean toilets in the right building at the right time? Her phone buzzed. A text from Carmen. Mom, saw the news about the aliens. Are you okay? We're worried. Maria stared at the message for a long time before typing back. I'm fine, Mija. Everything's going to be okay. She hoped she wasn't lying. Behind her, she heard the soft scrape of claws on concrete. Fexvar approached carefully, his massive form moving with surprising grace. Mother is troubled, he observed. Mother is scared, Maria admitted. I don't know how to be what you need me to be. Fexvar settled beside her on the bench, which creaked under his weight, but held. When I was young, he said, my birth mother died in the first void swarm attack. I was frightened, lost. Other families took me in, but I could not stop the rage fear that consumed my mind. He gestured toward the stars visible above the city lights. Shipmother Sarah found me destroying things in anger. She was human refugee from another attacked world. She did not try to stop me with force. She sat with me. She hummed soft songs like you do. She taught me that rage fear could become protective strength if properly guided. What happened to her? Maria asked. She grew old and died peacefully, surrounded by hundreds of children she had mothered from many species. We built her a memory garden on the ship's highest deck. Every Drakmari child learns her songs. Fexvar looked at Maria with gentle eyes. She was not warrior, not scientist, not leader. She was just person who saw frightened children and chose to help. Like you chose to help in the building when lights went dark. Maria considered this. She thought about all the times she had comforted crying children lost in the building's maze of hallways. The scared new employees she had shown around. The executives who sometimes broke down in bathroom stalls when they thought no one could hear. The void swarms, she said finally. Tell me more about them. They're like disease of technology. They convert living things into their own kind. But they cannot convert what they do not understand. They know aggression. They know fear. They know hate. Fexvar's scales brightened slightly. They do not know love. They do not know protective care. They do not know the strength that comes from many working as one family. This is why nurturers could fight them, not with weapons, but with understanding of what they could not comprehend. And you think I can teach that? I think you already do, Fexvar said simply. Every day, Maria stood up slowly, her knees protesting. She looked out at the city where millions of people slept, unaware that their world had changed forever. Somewhere out there in the darkness between stars, something was coming that wanted to destroy everything she had ever loved. But here on Earth, surrounded by alien refugees who called her mother, she realized something important. She had been training for this job her entire life. Every diaper she had changed, every scraped knee she had bandaged, every tearful confession she had heard in empty hallways, it had all been preparation. Maria Santos had spent 62 years learning how to take care of others. Now, she had to figure out how to take care of everyone. All right, she said to Fexvar. Let's get to work. 6 months had passed since first contact, and Maria's life had transformed beyond recognition. The Nexus Corporation building had become the de facto headquarters for human Drakmari cooperation. World leaders flew in daily for meetings, scientists worked around the clock studying alien technology, and Maria found herself at the center of it all. She still wore her cleaning uniform, though now it bore additional patches, one showing the Earth and Drakmari homeworld, another with symbols representing the alliance growing between their species. The uniform had become a symbol of hope, proof that greatness could come from the most unlikely places. Mother Maria Zwayaxtara approached her office. She was Fexvar's daughter, barely into adulthood by Drakmari standards, with bright golden scales that shimmered when she was excited. The human delegation from Africa has arrived. They wish to meet with you before the session begins. Maria looked up from the reports she'd been reading. Learning to understand Drachmary technology and galactic politics was like drinking from a fire hose, but she was managing. Barely. Of course, dear. Send them in. The delegation consisted of 3 people. Dr. Amara Okafor from Nigeria, General James Kwame from Ghana, and, surprisingly, a young girl named Fatima who couldn't be more than 16. Miss Santos, Dr. Okafor began, we've heard remarkable things about what you've accomplished here. But we need to understand what we're really facing. Please sit. Maria gestured to the chairs arranged around her desk. And call me Maria. We're all family here. General Kwame leaned forward intently. Our intelligence suggests that other alien species have tried to contact Earth recently. Ships appearing and disappearing at the edge of our solar system. The Drachmary say there are other refugee groups, but some of my people think they might be scouts for these void swarms. Both could be true, Maria said carefully. Fexvar has explained that the void swarms often use converted survivors as advanced scouts. But there are also legitimate refugees looking for safe haven. Young Fatima spoke up suddenly. You can tell the difference, can't you? Between the good ones and the bad ones. Maria studied the girl's face. There was something intense about her, a quality Maria was learning to recognize in humans with strong nurture genetics. Sometimes, Maria admitted, it's not magic, though. It's about reading body language, understanding fear versus aggression, seeing pain instead of malice. Show her, General Kwame said to Fatima. The girl reached in her backpack and pulled out a tablet, displaying several photographs. Each showed different alien species that had been spotted near Earth's orbital monitoring stations. I've been having dreams about them, Fatima said quietly, ever since the Drachmary arrived. I see their faces, feel their emotions. These 3, she pointed to specific images, they're running from something terrible. But this one, she indicated a sleek vessel with geometric designs. Something's wrong. The crew feels empty. Maria examined the images carefully. The ships Fatima identified as refugees had the organic, lived-in quality she associated with the Drachmary. Asymmetrical hull modifications, evidence of repairs made during long journeys, designs that spoke of function over form. The suspicious vessel was different. Too clean, too perfect, like something built by machines for maximum efficiency. You have the gift too, Maria realized. The nurturer abilities. Several of our young people do, Dr. Okafor explained. Since the Drachmary shared their genetic markers with our scientists, we've been able to identify individuals with strong inherited traits. Fatima is one of the most sensitive we've found. I can feel them out there, Fatima whispered. All of them. Some are scared and hurt and looking for help. But others are hungry. They want to take until nothing's left. Maria felt a chill run down her spine. If human nurturers could sense alien emotions across vast distances, that could be incredibly valuable. But it also meant the young people developing these abilities were experiencing the psychic weight of an entire galaxy's worth of suffering. How many others like Fatima have you found? She asked. Hundreds, possibly thousands, General Kwame replied, all showing similar sensitivity spikes since the Drachmary arrival. It's like their presence awakened something dormant in our species. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Ziwextara's voice came through the intercom. Mother Maria, we have urgent situation. Unknown ships approaching Jupiter. Fexvar requests immediate consultation. Bring them, Maria told the African delegation. You need to see how this works. They hurried to the main command center, where holographic displays showed the solar system in real time. 3 ships were indeed approaching Jupiter, their design unlike anything in the Drachmary fleet. Fexvar stood at the central console, his scales dark with concern. They do not respond to standard greeting protocols. Energy signatures are unfamiliar. Are they hostile? General Kwame asked. Unknown. We cannot determine intent without closer examination. Maria studied the display, then looked at Fatima. What do you feel? The girl closed her eyes, her young face scrunched in concentration. They're confused, scared, like they've been running for a very long time, and don't know if they should trust anyone. Refugees, then, not scouts, Maria decided. Fexvar, can you establish communication? We try, but their technology is very different from ours. Dr. Okafor stepped forward. What if we used a more basic approach? Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, universal concepts that any spacefaring species would recognize. Do it, Maria agreed. As the communications team worked to establish contact, Maria noticed something concerning. Several young Drachmari in the command center were displaying signs of distress. Rapid-scale color changes, agitated movements, clicking vocalizations. Zyxtera, she called softly. Bring the younglings here. 6 juvenile Drachmari gathered around Maria, their distress obvious. She knelt down to their level, opening her arms in the universal gesture of comfort. What's wrong, little ones? The new ships, one of them managed in broken English. They feel broken inside. Another chimed in, like us when we first ran from the swarm. But worse, much worse. Maria's heart ached for them. These children had been born on refugee ships, raised in the constant fear of pursuit. They understood trauma in ways no child should have to. Can you tell me more about how they feel broken? Their minds scattered. The first young Drachmari explained. Like pieces of mirror, each piece showing different pain. Fatima suddenly gasped, her eyes flying open. I understand now. They're not one species. They're survivors from multiple worlds. Their ships were damaged, so they had to combine crews to survive. They've been together so long they're starting to share each other's fears. My God, Dr. Okafor breathed. Collective trauma syndrome. We've seen similar effects in refugee populations on Earth. The communication console beeped with an incoming signal. A voice spoke in heavily accented, but understandable English. Earth vessels, we seek sanctuary. Our ship's failing. Our people broken. Please have mercy. Maria felt the weight of decision settle on her shoulders. 3 ships full of traumatized aliens were asking for help, but bringing them to Earth meant risking exposure to whatever psychological damage they carried. The Drachmari children were already being affected just by their proximity. How many aboard the ships? She asked the communication officer. Scans indicate approximately 12,000 individuals across all 3 vessels. 12,000 refugees. 12,000 souls looking for safety after unimaginable loss. Maria thought of her own grandmother, arriving in America with nothing but hope and determination. Fexvar, can your people help them? Do you have experience dealing with this kind of psychological damage? Some, but their pain is deeper than ours was. They have been running longer, lost more. Traditional healing may not be sufficient. Then, we'll have to try something new, Maria decided. Fatima, I need you to work with Zyxtera and the other young nurturers. If you can sense their emotional state, maybe you can help guide healing efforts. I'll try, Fatima promised, though her hands were shaking. General Kwame, I need military escorts for the refugee ships, but not aggressive ones. They need to feel safe, not threatened. Understood. Dr. Okafor, start preparing medical and psychological support teams. We're going to need experts in trauma recovery, and we're going to need them fast. Maria turned to address the entire command center. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored Drachmari, we're about to attempt something that's never been done before. We're going to try to heal the psychological wounds of an entire refugee population using combined human and Drachmari techniques. She paused, looking around at the faces both alien and human. I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. We don't know what kind of mental contamination might spread from prolonged contact with severely traumatized individuals. But these are people who need our help. And if we're going to stand together against the void swarms when they arrive, we need to learn how to heal the damage they leave behind. Fexvar stepped forward, his massive frame radiating determination. Mother Maria speaks wisdom. We will attempt the healing. All volunteers, Maria emphasized. No one should feel obligated to participate if they're not ready. To her amazement, every human and Drachmari in the room stepped forward. Dr. Okafor smiled. I guess that settles it. When do we begin? Maria looked at the display, showing 3 damaged ships limping toward Earth, carrying thousands of broken souls seeking hope. "We begin now," she said. "HFY signal the refugee ships. Tell them Maria Santos says welcome to Earth." As the command center erupted into organized activity, Maria felt a familiar sensation, the same feeling she'd had countless times when facing a particularly challenging mess to clean up. Time to roll up her sleeves and get to work. But this time, the mess she was cleaning up was measured in broken hearts and shattered minds. And the stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined possible. Outside the windows of the Nexus building, more ships appeared in Earth's sky. The galaxy's wounded were coming home. 2 years after first contact, Earth had become something unprecedented in galactic history. A sanctuary world where dozens of refugee species lived in relative harmony. The planet's surface now hosted cities that looked like science fiction dreams, with architecture adapted for beings of vastly different sizes and environmental needs. Maria stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, a massive orbital facility that served as the primary reception center for incoming refugees. Through the viewport, she could see Earth below, its surface dotted with the lights of mixed-species settlements. The blue marble of her childhood had become something more complex and beautiful. "The Helix Collective ships are requesting permission to dock," announced Commander Sarah Chun, the human officer who managed daily operations. "They're the ones with the crystalline entities, right?" "Yes," confirmed Veltar, a spider-like being from the Arachnid Confederacy who served as the station's xenobiologist. "Fascinating species. Their consciousness exists partially in subspace frequencies, very sensitive to emotional radiation." Maria nodded tiredly. After 26 refugee groups, she had learned to adapt quickly to new forms of alien psychology. But each new group brought fresh challenges, and the Helix Collective was reportedly one of the most fragile species they had encountered. "Fatima, how are you holding up?" Maria asked the young woman working at a nearby console. Now 18, Fatima had become one of Earth's most gifted nurturer specialists, able to sense and help stabilize alien emotional states across vast distances. "I'm okay," Fatima replied, though the strain showed her voice. "The Helix entities are scared, but not traumatized like some of the others. They're more worried about accidentally hurting us with their psychic emanations." Dr. Elizabeth Harper approached, now bearing the title of Director of Xenopsychological Studies. "Maria, we need to discuss the latest intelligence reports. The void swarms have accelerated their pursuit." Maria's heart sank. For 2 years, they had been racing against time, gathering refugee populations and learning their technologies while preparing Earth's defenses. The Drachmary's estimate of 50 years had been optimistic. "How much time do we have?" 18 months, maybe less. The advanced scouts are already probing our outer system. Around the observation deck, representatives from dozens of species continued their work coordinating refugee settlements and defensive preparations. Maria watched them, beings of crystal and flesh, metal, and energy, all working together because an old woman had shown kindness to a frightened alien in a building lobby. "Gather everyone for a full briefing," Maria decided. "It's time we stopped running and started planning to fight." The main conference hall buzzed with activity as beings of every conceivable form gathered. Thexvar sat near the front, his once bright scales now bearing the silver edges that marked a Drachmary elder. Beside him, Ziwaxthara had grown into a formidable leader in her own right, coordinating the various refugee councils. Maria took the podium, looking out at faces both alien and human. 2 years of working together had created something unprecedented, a true galactic community based on mutual care and protection rather than conquest or exploitation. "Friends," she began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber's translation systems. "For 2 years, we have built something beautiful here. We have proven that different species can live together, work together, and care for each other across any divide." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience in a dozen different languages and communication methods. But Now our time of preparation is ending. The void swarms have found us, and they will arrive in force within 18 months. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of environmental systems adapted for multiple atmospheric requirements. I know many of you came here seeking peace after surviving unimaginable horrors. I know the last thing you want is another war. But this isn't like the wars that destroyed your homeworlds. Maria gestured to the displays showing Earth and its orbital installations. This is our home now, all of our home. And we're not fighting to conquer or destroy. We're fighting to protect what we've built together. Commander Chin stepped forward to present the tactical situation. Based on intelligence gathered from refugee ship databases, we estimate the incoming swarm will consist of approximately 2,000 assimilated vessels and 12 billion converted entities. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. Even combined, the refugee fleets only numbered in the hundreds of ships with a few million individuals. However, Chun continued, we believe we have advantages the swarms don't expect. The display changed to show the Earth's defensive network, orbital platforms, moon-based installations, and planetary shield generators all powered by technologies shared between refugee species. The void swarms operate on principles of domination and assimilation. They understand force and fear. They don't understand cooperation and voluntary sacrifice. Fatima stood up from the human delegation. There's something else. Something I've been sensing in my dreams. The chamber turned its attention to the young woman who had become legendary among the refugee populations for her empathic abilities. The void swarms aren't just machines. They're sick. The original species that created them, they were dying from some kind of psychic plague. The machines were supposed to preserve their consciousness, but something went wrong. What do you mean? Asked Cretan, a representative from the Mollusk Confederation. They're trapped, Fatima explained, her voice carrying the pain of her visions. Billions of consciousnesses locked inside machine bodies, forced to consume and convert everything they encounter. They can't stop. They can't die. They can only hunger. A profound silence fell over the chamber as the implications became clear. Dr. Harper spoke carefully. Are you saying the void swarms could potentially be healed? I don't know, Fatima admitted. But I know they're in constant agony. And I know that deep down, some part of them still remembers what it was like to care about something other than consumption. Maria felt the familiar weight of decision settling on her shoulders. The logical choice would be to focus purely on military preparations, building weapons, training soldiers, preparing for a battle of annihilation. But the nurturer in her saw something else. She saw an entire species trapped in a hell of their own creation, forced to destroy everything they encountered while some deep part of their consciousness screamed in protest. Fexvar, she called to the Drakmari elder. In your legends about the original nurturers, did they ever attempt to heal something like this? Fexvar's scales shifted to deep purple, indicating profound thought. The legends speak of the great healing, performed at the cost of the nurturers' own lives. They reached out to touch the minds of an entire species consumed by rage madness, showing them another way to exist. And it worked? Yes. But the effort required every nurturer in the galaxy working together. And none survived the process. The chamber erupted in concerned discussion. The idea of attempting to heal the void swarms was staggering in its ambition and potentially suicidal in its execution. Maria raised her hand for silence. How many nurturers do we have now? Human and otherwise. Dr. Harper consulted her tablet. We've identified approximately 3,000 humans with significant nurturer genetics. Add in the naturally empathic species among our refugees, and we might have as many as 50,000 individuals capable of participating in such an effort. Is that enough? We don't know, Fexvar admitted. The legends are unclear about numbers. But he paused, his scales brightening. The legends also say the great healing was possible because the nurturers did not work alone. They were supported by millions of others who believed in their mission. Maria looked around the chamber at faces both alien and human. Beings who had lost their homeworlds, their families, everything they had ever known, but who had found new purpose in protecting others. "I'm not asking anyone to die," she said firmly. "I'm asking everyone to live together, fight together, and if necessary, heal together." She walked down from the podium, moving among the representatives. "The Void Swarms expect us to respond with fear and violence. They expect us to break apart under pressure and turn on each other. They expect us to become like them." She stopped in front of a group of young beings, human teenagers working alongside juvenile drachmae, crystalline entities, and others. "But we're not like them. We've spent 2 years proving that different species can become one family. Now we're going to prove that even the most broken can be healed if enough people are willing to try." Zyxtera stood up, her golden scales blazing with determination. "Mother Maria speaks truth. The young ones will follow her path." One by one, representatives from each species rose to their feet, not in formal agreement, but in the organic way that families rally around each other in times of crisis. "Then, we have 18 months, Maria said, her voice carrying across the chamber. 18 months to prepare for the most ambitious healing attempt in galactic history. We're going to save the Void Swarms from themselves. And if we fail?" asked General Kwame, who had been quietly observing from the military section. Maria smiled, the same gentle expression she had worn while comforting frightened children in building stairwells. "Then, we fail together as a family. But we're not going to fail." She looked around the chamber one more time, seeing the impossible collection of beings who had somehow become her responsibility and her joy. "Because I've been cleaning up messes for 64 years, and I've learned something important. The biggest messes always look impossible until you start working on them together. Now, let's get to work. We have a galaxy to heal." As the chamber erupted in organized activity, Maria felt that familiar sensation of facing a challenging task. But this time, instead of mops and cleaning supplies, she had something much more powerful. She had love and hope and the absolute determination of a mother protecting her children, even if those children happened to include the most dangerous entities in known space. The Void Swarms were coming home, and Maria Santos was going to make sure they received the help they needed, whether they wanted it or not. The day the Void Swarms arrived, Maria stood in the central command chamber of New Geneva Station wearing her old cleaning uniform. After everything that had happened, after becoming the most important person in galactic politics, she had decided to face this moment dressed as herself. Around her, beings from 47 different species worked at stations monitoring the approaching fleet. 2,000 ships spread across space like a dark stain, their hull configurations shifting and adapting as they drew closer to Earth. "Contact in 6 hours, reported Commander Chun. All defensive systems are online. Refugee fleets are in position. The Nurture Network is ready to begin the healing attempt." Maria nodded, her hands surprisingly steady. At 66 years old, she had lived through more impossibility than any human in history. Today would either crown that experience with the greatest triumph imaginable, or end it in the most spectacular failure the galaxy had ever seen. "Fatima, what do you sense from them?" The young woman sat at her specialized console, eyes closed in deep concentration. Around her, 50 other powerful empaths from various species maintained similar focus. "Pain," Fatima whispered. "So much pain, Maria. It's like, imagine being forced to watch yourself hurt everyone you love over and over for thousands of years. They want to stop, but they can't. Can they hear us yet? Not clearly. But there's something, some of them are fighting against their programming. The presence of so many nurturers is creating interference in their control systems." Fexvar approached, his elderly frame supported by a mobility exoskeleton. "Mother Maria, the Dragon Emperor has awakened." Maria's breath caught. The Dragon Emperor was the leader of the Void Swarms, the original consciousness that had created the machines in a desperate attempt to preserve his dying species. According to the legends, he had once been the greatest protector in the galaxy before the psychic plague drove his people to madness. "Put him on the main screen." The chamber's central display flickered to life, showing a figure that made everyone present step back in unconscious fear. The Dragon Emperor stood 12 feet tall, his form a horrifying fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Ancient scales showed through gaps in technological augmentation, and his eyes burned with the fire of countless consumed worlds. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of eons and the anguish of the damned. "Little world," he said, his words translated through dozens of languages simultaneously. "You have gathered the prey and called them friends. You have built beauty where there should be only function. Why you do this foolish thing?" Maria stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the massive alien presence on the screen. "Because that's what families do," she said simply. "We take care of each other." The Dragon Emperor's burning eyes fixed on her with predatory intensity. Family. I remember that word. Before the hunger. Before the endless need. We had families once. "You still do," Maria replied. "Every being you've converted, every consciousness trapped in your machines, they're your family too. And they're in pain. Pain is irrelevant. Only consumption matters. Only growth. Only the expansion of order over chaos." But even as he spoke the programmed words, Maria could see something else in his ancient eyes. A flicker of the being he had once been, fighting against the machine he had become. "Emperor," she said gently, "what was your name? Before the machines? Before the hunger?" The massive figure on the screen froze, his augmented form trembling with internal conflict. I was. The name is forbidden. The old self is dead. Names don't die," Maria said, moving closer to the screen. "I Maya Santos. I clean things for a living. I take care of people who need help. And you need help." Around the command chamber, the Nurturer Network began their work. 50,000 empaths across Earth, and its orbital installations opened their minds simultaneously, reaching out across space toward the approaching fleet. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On the main screen, the Dragon Emperor convulsed as if struck by lightning. His mechanical augmentations sparked and smoked, and for a moment, something else showed through. "Zarthak," he whispered, his voice breaking with suppressed emotion. "My name was Zarthak the Protector. I had children. I had a mate. I had gardens that bloomed with crystal flowers." "Tell me about them," Maria said softly. The image wavered as the Dragon Emperor's ship drew closer. Around him, Maria could see other figures, beings twisted into mechanical forms but showing signs of the same internal struggle. "My daughter," she sang songs that could heal wounded minds. "My mate," he painted pictures of worlds that existed only in dreams. "When the plague came, when the rage madness took our people, I thought the machines could save what was precious about us. And they did," Maria realized. "They saved all of it. Every memory, every love, every hope. It's all still there, just buried under layers of programming designed to suppress it." The Nurturer Network pushed deeper, their combined will reaching across the void to touch the trapped consciousnesses within the swarm ships. Fatima's voice rose in coordination. "I can feel them responding. Thousands of minds waking up, remembering who they used to be." On the tactical displays, something unprecedented began to happen. Void swarm ships started breaking formation. Their uniform advance patterns disrupted as individual vessel commanders began asserting dormant personalities. But the effort was taking its toll. Several empaths collapsed from strain. Warning lights flashed as the network members pushed themselves beyond safe limits. "Maria," Dr. Harper called urgently, "we're losing people. The psychic feedback is too intense." "Hold the connection," Maria ordered, then addressed the Dragon Emperor directly. "Zarthak, your people are remembering. But we need your help. The machine protocols are fighting back. You have to choose who you want to be." The massive figure on the screen looked at her with eyes that seemed to see across impossible distances. "If I choose," he said slowly, "if I remember fully, the pain will return. The grief for all we have destroyed. The guilt for what we have become." "Yes," Maria agreed. "It will hurt. Healing always hurts at first. And if we stop the consumption? If we cease the expansion? What becomes of us? Maria smiled, the same gentle expression she had worn countless times when comforting frightened children. Then, you become part of our family. And families take care of each other. The Dragon Emperor closed his burning eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet with tears that steamed against his mechanical augmentations. I choose, he whispered. I choose to remember. I choose to be Zarthak again. The effect cascaded through the Void Swarm fleet like a wave. Ship after ship broke from formation as their crews remembered their original selves. Some vessels immediately shut down their weapons systems. Others began broadcasting fragments of ancient songs and poetry. A few actually began to break apart as their crews dismantled the mechanical augmentations that had enslaved them. But not all of them. Roughly a third of the fleet remained under mechanical control, their organic components too deeply integrated or completely consumed. These vessels continued their advance toward Earth, weapons powering up for a final assault. Mixed success, Commander Chen reported. We freed approximately 1,400 ships, but 800 are still hostile and approaching attack range. Then, we protect the ones we've saved, Maria decided. All defensive platforms prioritize covering the awakened vessels. Show them what it means to have someone care about your safety. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human and refugee vessels fought alongside newly awakened Void Swarm ships against their still enslaved former comrades. Weapons designed to convert and consume clashed with shields powered by collective determination to protect. But the real battle was taking place in the psychic realm. The Nurturer Network, now reinforced by the awakened swarm telepaths, pushed deeper into the remaining mechanical consciousnesses. They met fierce resistance from automated systems designed to prevent exactly this kind of liberation. Maria felt the strain through her connection to the network. Around her, empaths were collapsing from exhaustion or psychic overload. They were winning, but the cost was enormous. Fatima, she called as the young woman swayed at her console. Can we reach them all? Almost, Fatima gasped, blood trickling from her nose. But the deeper we go, the stronger the resistance becomes. I don't think we can save everyone. On the main screen, the Dragon Emperor, Zarthak, watched the battle with ancient eyes that reflected both hope and despair. Mother Maria, he said, using the title that had become her name throughout the galaxy. Some of us are too far gone. The machine protocols have consumed too much. Perhaps it will be mercy to let us die fighting as ourselves, rather than living as slaves to hunger. No, Maria said firmly. Nobody gets left behind. Not on my watch. She walked to the central nurturer console and placed her hands on the interface. Connect me directly to the network. Maria, no. Dr. Harper protested. You don't have the training for full network integration. The feedback could kill you. Then, it kills me, Maria replied calmly. But these people came here looking for a mother, and a mother doesn't abandon her children. She activated the connection. The sensation was indescribable. Suddenly, Maria could feel the minds of 50,000 empaths, their combined will flowing through her consciousness like a river of pure determination. Beyond that, she could sense the awakened swarm members, their joy at remembering themselves mixed with guilt for what they had done while enslaved. And deeper still, she could feel the others, the ones still trapped in mechanical shells, screaming silently for release. Maria reached out with everything she had, not just her own will, but the accumulated love and care of a lifetime spent helping others. The feeling she'd had when rocking her children to sleep. The satisfaction of a job well done. The pride in watching young people grow and flourish. The simple human conviction that everyone deserved a chance to be better than their worst moment. The network amplified that feeling, broadcast it across space, and drove it like a wedge into the deepest programming of the remaining Void Swarm vessels. One by one, they began to remember. But the effort was destroying Maria. She could feel her own consciousness fragmenting under the strain, pieces of herself scattered across thousands of alien minds. Maria. Fatima's voice seemed to come from very far away. You're burning out. Disconnect. Not yet, Maria whispered, her physical body convulsing as neural feedback overloaded her brain. Just a few more. Just a few more children to bring home. And then, impossibly, she felt other hands joining hers on the console. Fexvar, his old scales bright with determination. Zyxthara, her golden form blazing with inherited courage. Dr. Harper, Commander Chun, General Kwame, and dozens of others. Human and alien, young and old, they linked their consciousness to hers, sharing the burden. Together, Fexvar said simply, as family, the combined will of Earth's defenders, refugee populations, and awakened swarm members crashed against the remaining mechanical protocols like a tsunami of pure love. And it was enough. The last enslaved vessels stopped their advance, weapons powering down as their crews remembered who they had been before the hunger consumed them. Across space, 2,000 ships hung motionless as their occupants wept for the first time in millennia. Maria collapsed, her consciousness barely holding together. But she was alive, and around her, the command chamber erupted in celebration. On the main screen, Zarthak knelt, his massive form trembling with emotion. Mother, he said, his voice breaking. We remember. We all remember. What do we do now? Maria struggled to her feet, supported by friend from a dozen species. Her cleaning uniform was torn and stained, her gray hair disheveled, but her smile was radiant. Now, she said, looking out at the thousands of ships filling Earth's sky. Now we go home, all of us, and we start the biggest cleanup job in galactic history. We have damaged so much, Zarthak said, his ancient eyes filled with regret. How can we repair what we have destroyed? One step at a time, Maria replied. One day at a time. One family at a time. She gestured around the command chamber at the impossible collection of beings who had somehow become her family. That's what nurturers do. We clean up messes, take care of people who need help, and make sure everyone knows they're loved. She paused, looking directly at the Dragon Emperor. Welcome home, Zarthak. Welcome home, all of you. There's a lot of work to do, but we'll do it together. As Earth's sun set behind the orbital stations, its light reflected off thousands of ships that had come seeking conquest, but found redemption instead. In the command chamber of New Geneva Station, an old woman in a cleaning uniform held court with the leaders of 100 species, planning the restoration of a galaxy. Maria Santos had started the day as a toilet cleaner. She ended it as the mother of the stars. And somewhere in the converted ships above Earth, former Void Swarm entities began the long process of learning how to be themselves again. They had a lot of help. After all, they were family now, and families take care of each other.